7 True Tinder Dating App Horror Story. 1. The perfect match. Sarah had been single for 2 years when she decided to give Tinder a try. She was 28, working as a teacher, and her friends kept telling her she needed to put herself out there. So one Friday night, she downloaded the app and started swiping. Most of the profiles looked boring or fake, but then she saw him, Marcus. His pictures showed a handsome guy with kind eyes and a warm smile. His bio said he was a veterinarian who loved hiking and old movies. They matched instantly. Their conversation flowed like they had known each other for years. Marcus was funny, charming, and genuinely interested in her life. They texted for 3 weeks straight, talking about everything from their favorite books to their childhood dreams. Sarah felt like she had finally found someone special. When Marcus suggested they meet for coffee, Sarah was excited. She told her roommate Emma about the date and promised to share her location. They agreed to meet at a popular coffee shop downtown at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Sarah arrived early and grabbed a table near the window. She kept checking her phone, feeling those nervous butterflies. At exactly 2 p.m., Marcus walked in. He looked just like his photos, maybe even better. He had that same warm smile and gave her a friendly hug. The date went perfectly. They talked for 3 hours, laughing and sharing stories. Marcus was everything she hoped he would be. When he suggested they take a walk in the nearby park, Sarah agreed without hesitation. The park was beautiful that day, with families having picnics and kids playing. They walked along a tree-lined path and Marcus held her hand. It felt natural and right. But then Marcus suggested they take a shortcut through a less crowded area to see a hidden pond he knew about. Sarah felt a tiny warning bell in her head, but pushed it away. Marcus had been so perfect. They walked deeper into the woods, away from the families and joggers. The trees got thicker and the sounds of the park faded away. That's when Marcus stopped walking. His whole demeanor changed. The warm smile disappeared and his eyes went cold. He grabbed Sarah's arm tightly, making her wince in pain. "You know, Sarah, you're even prettier than your pictures," he said, but his voice was different now, darker. "I've been watching you for a while, not just on Tinder. I work at the school across from yours. I see you every day through your classroom window." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She tried to pull away, but his grip was like steel. He pulled out his phone and showed her hundreds of photos of her. Pictures of her leaving her apartment, walking to work, at the grocery store, at the gym. Some were taken through her apartment window. There were screenshots of all her social media posts going back years, including ones she had deleted. "I know everything about you," Marcus whispered. "I know you live alone because Emma visits her boyfriend every weekend. I know you go jogging every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 6 a.m. I know your parents live 3 states away. I know you're scared of spiders and you sleep with a nightlight." Sarah's mind raced. They were alone in the woods. Her phone was in her purse. She had to think fast. She forced herself to stay calm and managed a shaky smile. That's actually kind of flattering," she lied, her voice trembling. "But you know what? I need to use the bathroom really badly. Can we head back to the coffee shop? Then maybe we can go to your place?" Marcus studied her face for a long moment. Sarah kept the fake smile plastered on, even though she felt like she might throw up. Finally, he loosened his grip. "Okay," he said, "but don't try anything stupid. I know where you live. I know your routine. If you run or call the cops, I'll be waiting for you. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But I'll be there." They walked back to the park in silence. Sarah's legs felt like jelly, but she forced herself to walk normally. The moment they reached the crowded area, she saw a family with 3 kids. She broke away from Marcus and ran straight to them. "Please help me," she said loudly. "This man has been following me and threatening me." The father immediately stepped between Sarah and Marcus. Other people started looking. Marcus's face changed again, back to that charming smile. "Sarah, what are you talking about? We were just having a nice date," he said smoothly. But Sarah pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called 911. Marcus saw the crowd gathering and decided to run. The police caught him 20 minutes later trying to leave the park. When the police searched his apartment, they found a small room covered in photos of Sarah. Every wall was papered with pictures of her. There were notebooks filled with details about her daily routine, her friends, her family. They also found evidence linking him to 3 other women who had gone missing after meeting someone on Tinder in the past 2 years. Marcus wasn't even a veterinarian. He was unemployed and had been arrested twice before for stalking. Everything about his profile was a lie. The police told Sarah she was lucky to be alive. The other 3 women were never found. Sarah deleted all her dating apps that day. She moved to a different apartment and changed jobs. Even now, 3 years later, she checks over her shoulder constantly. She keeps her curtains closed and never posts her location on social media. Sometimes she wakes up in the middle of the night, convinced she hears someone outside her window. The worst part is that Marcus made bail before his trial. He disappeared and was never seen again. There's still a warrant out for his arrest, but he's gone. Sarah knows he's out there somewhere, and sometimes she gets a feeling that he's still watching. Story 2. The basement date Tom was a 32-year-old software engineer who had been using Tinder on and off for a year. He matched with a woman named Jessica who seemed amazing. She was beautiful, funny, and shared his love of horror movies and video games. After 2 weeks of messaging, Jessica suggested they meet at her place to watch a movie instead of going to a crowded theater. Tom thought it was a bit forward, but Jessica explained that she had social anxiety and felt more comfortable at home for a first date. She sent him her address and suggested 8 p.m. on Friday night. Tom told his brother Mike where he was going and promised to check in. Jessica's house was in a quiet suburban neighborhood. It was a nice 2-story home with a well-kept lawn. Jessica answered the door wearing jeans and a sweater, looking just like her photos. She had a warm smile and invited him in. The living room was cozy and normal. They sat on the couch and started watching a horror movie. Jessica made popcorn and poured them both wine. Tom started to relax. This was actually going well. About halfway through the movie, Jessica's phone rang. She looked at it and frowned. "I'm so sorry," she said. "That's my mom. She's elderly and sometimes needs help. She lives in the basement apartment. Do you mind if I check on her real quick? It'll just take a minute." Tom said, "Of course." Jessica smiled and headed toward a door in the kitchen. Then she paused. "Actually, would you mind coming with me? She gets confused sometimes, and having a man's voice helps calm her down. My dad passed away last year." Tom felt bad for her and agreed. They walked down a narrow staircase into the basement. It was dark, lit by only a single bulb at the bottom of the stairs. Tom felt a twinge of unease but kept following Jessica. At the bottom of the stairs was a heavy metal door. Jessica pulled out a key and unlocked it. The door swung open to reveal complete darkness. "Mom," Jessica called into the dark. "I brought someone to meet you." Tom heard a shuffling sound from inside the dark room. Then suddenly Jessica shoved him hard from behind. Tom stumbled forward into the darkness. The metal door slammed shut behind him and he heard the lock click. "Jessica," Tom shouted, pounding on the door. "What are you doing? Let me out." He heard Jessica's laughter from the other side of the door, but it sounded different now. Colder. Meaner. "Sorry, Tom, but you're going to be staying here for a while," she said. "Don't worry, you're not alone. Mom's in there with you. Well, what's left of her." Tom fumbled in the darkness for his phone. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. He turned on the flashlight and immediately wished he hadn't. He was in a small concrete room, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. In the corner was a rotting corpse sitting in a wheelchair. The smell hit him then, and Tom gagged. But that wasn't the worst thing. Chained to the wall on the opposite side of the room was a man. He was thin, covered in dirt and sores, and he looked up at Tom with hollow eyes. "How long?" Tom whispered. "How long have you been here?" The man's voice was a croak. 3 months. I was a Tinder date too. There was another guy before me, but he died. She kept his body for a while before she dragged it out. Tom felt panic rising in his chest. He pounded on the door again, screaming for help. But Jessica was gone, and he could hear her footsteps walking back up the stairs. Tom tried calling 911, but there was no signal in the basement. He tried texting Mike, but the messages wouldn't send. He was trapped. For the next few hours, Tom tried everything. He threw himself against the door. He searched every inch of the room for a way out. The other man, whose name was David, just watched him with dead eyes. "I tried all that," David said quietly. "She's done this before. We're not the first." Tom looked at the corpse in the wheelchair. "Is that really her mother?" David laughed, but it was a sound without humor. "No, that's Robert. He was here when I arrived. He died about a month ago. She keeps the bodies for a while. I don't know why." As the night wore on, Tom heard sounds from upstairs. Music. Laughter. Jessica was watching the rest of the movie. Like everything was normal. Around midnight, the metal door opened. Jessica stood there with a tray of food and bottles of water. She kept a large kitchen knife in her other hand. "Dinner time, boys," she said cheerfully. "Tom, move to the back wall or I'll cut you." Tom did as he was told. Jessica slid the tray inside and quickly locked the door again. The food was actually good, sandwiches and fruit, but Tom couldn't eat. He kept looking at his phone, hoping for a signal. "Mike knows I'm here," Tom called through the door. "He has the address. When I don't check in, he'll call the police." Jessica's laughter echoed from upstairs. "Oh, Tom, you think you're the first person to think of that? This isn't my house. It belongs to a friend who's traveling in Europe for 6 months. By the time anyone comes looking, I'll be long gone, and you'll be just like Robert over there." Tom felt hope draining away, but then he remembered something. His phone had a feature that shared his location automatically with Mike every few hours. They had set it up for safety when Tom started dating online. Even without a signal to send texts, the location share worked on a different system. Tom just had to stay alive long enough for Mike to notice something was wrong. The night stretched on forever. Tom dozed fitfully, jerking awake at every sound. David told him more about his time in the basement. How Jessica brought food and water every day. How she sometimes came down just to talk to them, telling them about her day like they were friends. How she seemed completely insane. Morning came, then afternoon. Tom's phone was dying, but he kept it on, praying the location share was still working. Around 3 p.m., Tom heard something. Sirens in the distance getting closer. Jessica heard them too. Tom heard her running around upstairs, panicking. The siren stopped outside. There was pounding on the front door. "Police, open up!" Jessica ran down to the basement. She unlocked the metal door and Tom saw that she had the knife. Her eyes were wild. "If I'm going down, you're coming with me," she hissed. She lunged at Tom with the knife. Tom grabbed her arm and they struggled. David tried to help but couldn't reach them from his chains. Tom managed to twist Jessica's wrist and the knife clattered to the floor. Heavy footsteps thundered down the basement stairs. "Police!" Officers flooded into the room. They grabbed Jessica and pulled her away from Tom. One officer immediately started working on David's chains. Another one helped Tom to his feet. Mike had noticed when Tom didn't check in. He saw the location share showing Tom at an address that didn't match what Tom had told him. When Mike called the police and they ran the address, they found it belonged to someone currently out of the country. That was enough for them to do a welfare check. Tom and David were taken to the hospital. David had to stay for 2 weeks. Tom was released the next day, physically fine but mentally shattered. The police investigation uncovered the truth. Jessica's real name was Amy Thornton, and she had been doing this for 4 years. She would rent houses from people who were traveling, use fake profiles on dating apps, and lure men to the houses. They found evidence of 7 other victims. Some had escaped or been let go. Others were never found. Amy was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Tom testified at her trial. She smiled at him the whole time, like they were sharing a private joke. Tom never used a dating app again. He moved back in with his brother for 6 months because he couldn't stand being alone. Even now, years later, he can't go into basements. And he never ever goes to someone's house for a first date. Story 3. The photo album. Rachel was 25 and new to the city. She had just started a job at a marketing firm and didn't know many people yet. Her coworker convinced her to try Tinder, saying it was a great way to meet people in a new place. She matched with a guy named Derek. He was 29, worked in finance, and seemed normal. Maybe a bit bland, but nice enough. They chatted for a week before he asked her to dinner at an Italian restaurant downtown. The date was fine. Derek was polite and a good conversationalist, but Rachel didn't feel any real spark. When Derek asked if she wanted to come to his apartment for a nightcap, she planned to politely decline. But then Derek mentioned he had a collection of vintage movie posters, and Rachel loved old movies. She figured one drink wouldn't hurt. Derek's apartment was in a nice building with a doorman. That made Rachel feel safer. His place was clean and tastefully decorated. He did have some cool movie posters on the walls. Derek poured them both wine and they sat on the couch chatting about classic films. After about 20 minutes, Rachel needed to use the bathroom. Derek pointed her down a hallway. "Second door on the right," he said. Rachel walked down the hall, but in her slightly tipsy state, she got confused and opened the first door instead. It was dark inside, and when she felt for a light switch, she pushed the door open wider. It wasn't a bathroom. It was a bedroom, but not a normal one. One entire wall was covered in photographs. Rachel stepped closer, curious. Then her blood ran cold. They were all pictures of women, dozens and dozens of women, and she recognized some of them. They were screenshots from Tinder profiles. Her fingers shaking, Rachel pulled out her phone and started taking pictures of the wall. But it got worse. Some of the photos weren't from Tinder. They were pictures taken without the women knowing. Women walking down the street. Women sitting in cafes. Women getting out of cars. Each cluster of photos had a date written above it in neat handwriting. Rachel's eyes scanned the wall frantically. Then she saw it. A section with her name written at the top. There were screenshots of her Tinder profile, her Instagram, her Facebook. But there were also photos she had never seen before. Pictures of her walking to work, going into her apartment building, at the grocery store. One was taken through the window of her apartment, showing her sitting on her couch watching TV. The photos of her were dated going back 3 weeks. Before they had even matched on Tinder, Rachel felt like she might faint. She heard Derek's voice from the living room. "Rachel, you okay in there?" She quickly backed out of the room and quietly pulled the door shut. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She needed to get out, but she had to play it cool. Rachel walked back to the living room on shaky legs. Derek looked up at her with a smile, but his eyes were watchful. "Did you find the bathroom okay?" he asked. "Yeah," Rachel managed to say. "But actually, I'm not feeling great. I think the wine might have been too much. I should probably head home." Derek's smile didn't change, but something shifted in his expression. "You sure? I could make you some coffee." "No, really, I should go." Rachel grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Derek stood up and moved quickly, putting himself between Rachel and the exit. You opened the wrong door, didn't you? Rachel's mouth went dry. I don't know what you're talking about. I just need to go home. Derek took a step closer. He wasn't smiling anymore. You saw the photos. I can see it on your face. Rachel's hand slipped into her purse, closing around her pepper spray. Derek, just let me leave. I won't tell anyone. I'll delete my profile. We can just forget this happened. You don't understand, Derek said, and his voice had taken on a pleading quality. I'm not going to hurt you. I would never hurt any of you. I like to look. I like to know things. It's just harmless photos. You've been stalking me for 3 weeks, Rachel said, her voice rising. You've been taking pictures of me without my knowledge. That's not harmless. I just wanted to know more about you before we met, Derek said. I do it with all my matches. I need to make sure they're safe, that they're real. You don't know how many fake profiles there are out there. Rachel pulled out the pepper spray. Stay away from me. I'm leaving right now, and if you try to stop me, I will spray you and scream. Derek's face crumpled. He actually started crying. Please don't tell anyone. Please, I'll lose my job. I'll delete everything. I'll never contact you again. Just please don't report me. Rachel kept the pepper spray pointed at him as she backed toward the door. You need help, Derek, serious help. And yes, I am going to report you. You've done this to dozens of women. She fumbled with the door lock, never taking her eyes off Derek. He just stood there crying, not trying to stop her anymore. Rachel got the door open and ran. She didn't wait for the elevator, just bolted down the stairs and out of the building. The doorman called out to her, but she kept running. She ran for 3 blocks before she felt safe enough to slow down. She called 911 while walking quickly toward a busy street where there were lots of people. The police took her report seriously, especially when she showed them the photos she had taken of Derek's wall. They went to his apartment with a warrant that night. What they found was even worse than Rachel had seen. Derek had a second room she hadn't discovered. It was filled with filing cabinets containing detailed information on over 200 women. He had folders on each of them with printed photos, notes about their routines, copies of their social media posts, and information about their families and friends. Derek had been doing this for over 5 years. He would match with women on multiple dating apps, then extensively stalk them online and in person before ever meeting them. Sometimes he would go on dates with them, sometimes he wouldn't, but he kept collecting information on all of them, building extensive files like some kind of twisted detective. The police contacted every woman they could identify from Derek's collection. Many of them had gone on dates with him and never suspected anything was wrong. Some had felt like something was off but couldn't pinpoint what. A few had noticed someone following them but never connected it to Derek. Derek was charged with stalking, harassment, and several other crimes. The police found that he had violated restraining orders from 2 previous incidents in other cities. This wasn't his first time being caught, just his first time being caught with so much evidence. Rachel had to testify at his trial. Derek stared at her the entire time, tears running down his face. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison, but Rachel knows he'll get out eventually, and she knows he still has her address memorized. He had memorized everything about her. Rachel moved to a different apartment in a different neighborhood. She made all her social media accounts private and removed any information about where she lived or worked. She never used a dating app again, and she's always aware of her surroundings now, always checking to see if anyone is following her or watching her, because Derek wasn't a violent criminal. He never physically hurt anyone, but Rachel knows there are probably hundreds of men like him out there, matching with women on dating apps, collecting information, watching from the shadows, and most of them never get caught. Story 4. The doppelganger Michelle was a 30-year-old nurse who lived alone in a small apartment across from the hospital where she worked. She had been casually dating through Tinder for a few months, mostly meeting people for coffee or drinks, nothing serious. One night, she matched with a man named James. His profile showed an attractive guy with dark hair and a nice smile. His bio was brief but charming. They started chatting and James seemed great. He was a graphic designer, loved dogs, enjoyed hiking, and had a good sense of humor. After a week of texting, they agreed to meet for dinner at a seafood restaurant. James suggested a place near Michelle's apartment, which was convenient. They set the date for Saturday at 7 p.m. Michelle spent the day getting ready, feeling excited. James seemed like he could be something real. She put on her favorite dress and did her makeup carefully. At 6:45 p.m., she grabbed her purse and headed downstairs. As she walked out of her building, she saw a man standing across the street, partially hidden behind a tree. He was staring at her apartment building. Michelle felt a chill run down her spine. The man looked exactly like James from his Tinder photos. "James?" Michelle called out, confused. Why was he lurking across the street instead of meeting her at the restaurant? The man's head snapped toward her. For a moment, their eyes met, and Michelle saw something in his expression that terrified her. It wasn't friendly or warm. It was intense and angry. Then the man turned and quickly walked away, disappearing around the corner. Michelle stood there, shaken. That was weird. Maybe it wasn't James? Maybe it was just someone who looked like him. She pulled out her phone and texted James, "Hey, are you nearby? I thought I just saw you outside my building." James replied immediately, "No, I'm still at home getting ready. I'll head to the restaurant in about 15 minutes. See you soon." Michelle frowned. That man had looked exactly like James. Same hair, same build, same face. She shook her head, deciding she must have been mistaken. Maybe it was just someone who resembled him. She took an Uber to the restaurant and arrived a few minutes early. She got a table and ordered water while she waited. At exactly 7 p.m., James walked in. Michelle's heart skipped a beat. It was definitely the same man she had seen outside her building. Same face, same hair, same everything. But he was smiling now, looking friendly and normal. "Michelle," James approached with his hand extended. "It's so great to finally meet you in person." Michelle shook his hand slowly. "Have you been near my apartment building today?" James looked confused. "What? No, I live across town. This is my first time in this neighborhood." "Why? I thought I saw you outside my building about 20 minutes ago." James laughed. "Must have been my doppelganger. People say I have one of those faces." Michelle wanted to believe him. His confusion seemed genuine, and she had only seen the other man briefly. Maybe she really had been mistaken. She decided to let it go and enjoy the date. Dinner went well. James was charming and attentive. He asked about her work and told funny stories about his graphic design clients. Michelle started to relax. By the end of the meal, she was glad she hadn't let the weird incident earlier ruin the evening. When James offered to walk her home, Michelle hesitated. But the restaurant was only 3 blocks from her apartment, and it was a busy area. It seemed safe enough. They walked slowly, talking and laughing. When they reached Michelle's building, James smiled at her. "I had a really great time tonight. Can I see you again?" "I'd like that," Michelle said, and she meant it. They exchanged a brief hug, and James said goodnight. Michelle watched him walk down the street before she went inside. She rode the elevator to her 4th-floor apartment, still smiling. But when she unlocked her door and stepped inside, she knew immediately that something was wrong. Things had been moved. Her couch cushions were rearranged. A drawer in her kitchen was half open, though she always closed them. Her bedroom door was open when she always kept it closed. Someone had been in her apartment. Michelle's hands started shaking. She pulled out her phone to call 911, but then she saw something that made her blood turn to ice. On her coffee table was a Tinder profile printed out on paper, but it wasn't James's profile. It was a different profile with different photos, different bio, Different name. The name on this profile was Ryan, but the face in the photos was James. Michelle picked up the printout with trembling hands. The bio was completely different from what James had told her. This profile said Ryan was a freelance photographer. There was a note scribbled at the bottom in handwriting she didn't recognize. "This is who he really is. He's been lying to you. Check your bedroom closet. I'm trying to help you." Michelle felt like she was in a nightmare. Nothing made sense. Who had broken into her apartment? Who was the real James? What was in her closet? She should have run out of the apartment right then. She should have called the police. But curiosity and confusion made her walk slowly toward her bedroom. The closet door was slightly ajar. Michelle pushed it open with her foot, staying as far back as possible. Inside, hanging on the rack with her clothes, were several items that didn't belong to her. Men's clothes, a jacket, 2 shirts, and a pair of jeans. They looked expensive and were in James's size. Behind the clothes, taped to the back wall of the closet, were more printed Tinder profiles. Michelle pulled them down with shaking hands. There were 5 different profiles, each with a different name, different bio, different interests. But all of them had photos of James, or Ryan, or whoever he really was. One profile said he was a doctor named Marcus. Another said he was a teacher named David. The profiles seemed designed to appeal to different types of women. Marcus the doctor for women who valued stability. David the teacher for women who valued intelligence. James the graphic designer for creative types. Michelle heard a sound behind her and spun around. Standing in her bedroom doorway was James. He wasn't smiling anymore. "You weren't supposed to find those," he said quietly. Michelle backed against the closet, her phone clutched in her hand. "Who are you? What are you doing?" "I'm whoever I need to be," James said. He took a step into the room. "You're not the first girl I've dated from this building. Your neighbor 2 floors down thought she was dating a guy named Robert. Before her, there was a woman on the first floor who knew me as Chris." "You're insane," Michelle whispered. "No, I'm practical," James corrected. "I move to a new building every few months. I create profiles that will appeal to the women who live there. I research them, figure out what they want, and become that person. It's really quite simple." "The man I saw outside my building earlier," Michelle said. "That was you, wasn't it?" "You were watching to see when I left." James smiled, but it was cold. "I needed to leave those profiles for you to find. I needed you to understand before we took the next step in our relationship. There is no relationship. You're a stalker and a liar. I'm your boyfriend, Michelle. I've been planning this for weeks. I know everything about you. Your schedule, your friends, your family. I know you work night shifts on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I know you're allergic to bees. I know you had a cat that died last year and you still cry about it sometimes." Michelle felt tears streaming down her face. "How did you get into my apartment?" "I made a copy of your key last week. You left your purse on your chair at the coffee shop across the street while you went to the bathroom. It only took 2 minutes. James pulled something from his pocket. It was Michelle's spare apartment key, the one she kept on her regular keychain. "I'm going to need you to come with me now," James said. "We're going to drive to a cabin I have upstate. We're going to spend some time together, really get to know each other. If you cooperate, everything will be fine. If you don't," he let the sentence hang in the air. Michelle knew she had one chance. She still had her phone in her hand. Earlier, before leaving for dinner, she had opened the emergency call feature, just as a precaution. Now she pressed the side button 5 times quickly. Her phone made a loud alarm sound and started automatically calling 911. James lunged for her, but Michelle threw the phone across the room and dove past him. She ran for her apartment door screaming at the top of her lungs. James caught her in the hallway and pulled her back. They struggled, and Michelle fought like her life depended on it because it did. She scratched his face, drew blood, bit his arm. Her neighbor, an elderly man named Mr. Patterson, opened his door. He saw them fighting and started yelling. Another neighbor came out. James let go of Michelle and ran for the stairwell. The police arrived within minutes, finding Michelle shaking and crying on her hallway floor, surrounded by concerned neighbors. They found her phone still connected to 911, having recorded the entire confrontation. The police caught James 3 blocks away. His real name was Ethan Wright, and he had been doing this for 7 years across 5 different cities. He would target apartment buildings, create fake dating profiles, seduce women who lived there, and then gradually escalate his control over them. 2 of his previous victims had disappeared and were never found. 3 others had escaped but were too traumatized to testify against him. Story 5. The threesome trapped Bethany and her girlfriend Kara had been together for 3 years. They were happy and stable, but they had talked about spicing things up. After several discussions, they decided to try finding a third person for a one-time experience. They created a joint Tinder profile, making their intentions very clear. They matched with a woman named Alexis who seemed perfect. She was 27, worked as a yoga instructor, and said she had done this kind of thing before. She seemed friendly and respectful in their messages. After a week of chatting, they all agreed to meet at a bar first to make sure everyone was comfortable. The meeting at the bar went great. Alexis was charming, funny, and put both Bethany and Kara at ease. After a couple of drinks, they all felt good about moving forward. Alexis suggested they go to her apartment, which was nearby. She said she lived alone and her place was private and comfortable. Bethany and Kara exchanged a look. They had planned to go to a hotel, but Alexis's place was closer and she seemed trustworthy. They agreed. Alexis's apartment building was nice in a good neighborhood. They took the elevator to the 3rd floor and Alexis unlocked her door. The apartment was tastefully decorated with plants and soft lighting. Music was already playing. Alexis offered them wine and they all sat on the couch. Everything seemed perfect. But then Bethany noticed something odd. There were multiple phones on the coffee table, at least 4 or 5 different phones, all different brands and colors. Wow, that's a lot of phones, Kara laughed. Are you a drug dealer or something? Alexis smiled. No, I just like to keep my different lives separate. Work phone, personal phone, you know. It was a weird answer, but the wine was making Bethany feel relaxed. She decided not to worry about it. After about 30 minutes of talking and flirting, Alexis suggested they move to the bedroom. Bethany and Kara followed her down a hallway. The bedroom was dark, lit only by candles. It smelled nice, like lavender. There was a large bed with silk sheets. It all seemed very planned and romantic. Make yourselves comfortable, Alexis said. I'm just going to use the bathroom real quick. Help yourselves to more wine. She left the room, and Bethany and Kara sat on the bed. Kara poured them both more wine from a bottle that was already opened and waiting on the nightstand. This is really happening, Kara whispered excitedly. Are you nervous? A little, Bethany admitted, but it feels right, you know. They clinked glasses and drank. The wine tasted slightly different from what they had been drinking in the living room, sweeter with an odd aftertaste. Bethany mentioned it to Kara, who agreed it tasted strange. Within minutes, Bethany started feeling dizzy. The room began to spin. She looked at Kara and saw her girlfriend's eyes were unfocused and confused. Kara, I don't feel good, Bethany slurred. Her tongue felt thick in her mouth. Kara tried to stand but immediately fell back onto the bed. Something's wrong. We need to leave. Bethany tried to get up too, but her legs wouldn't work properly. The candles in the room seemed to blur and multiply. She heard the bedroom door open and saw Alexis walk back in, but she wasn't alone. Behind her was a man. A large man with cold eyes. Then another man appeared, and another. 3 men total, all standing in the doorway looking at Bethany and Kara like they were prey. "What's happening?" Bethany managed to say, but her words came out wrong, jumbled. Alexis wasn't smiling anymore. "You two are exactly what we needed. Young, healthy, no kids, no family in the area. Perfect." Bethany's mind was screaming at her body to move, to fight, to run. But the drugs in the wine had paralyzed her. She could barely lift her head. One of the men stepped forward and pulled out zip ties. Bethany tried to scream, but only a weak whimper came out. She felt the plastic cutting into her wrists as her hands were bound behind her back. Next to her, Kara was being tied up too, tears streaming down her face. "Don't bother fighting it," Alexis said casually, checking one of her many phones. "The sedative will wear off in a few hours, but by then you'll be somewhere very different." "Why?" Kara managed to whisper. Alexis knelt down so she was eye level with them. "Money, sweetie. You two are worth about $40,000 each. There are people who pay very well for healthy young women who won't be missed right away. No family nearby, minimal social circle, jobs where you could just quit and people would believe it. We've been watching you for weeks." Bethany felt tears running down her face. This couldn't be real. This was supposed to be a fun, consensual experience. Instead, they had walked right into a trap. "We've done this 12 times now," one of the men said. His voice was emotionless, like he was discussing a business transaction. "Always works the same way. Attractive women on dating apps target couples who are looking to experiment, bring them here, drug them, sell them. Easy money." The room started going dark around the edges. Bethany fought to stay conscious, but the drugs were too strong. The last thing she remembered was being lifted off the bed and feeling motion, like she was being carried. When Bethany woke up, everything was dark. Her head throbbed and her mouth was dry as sand. She tried to move and realized she was in an extremely confined space. Her hands were still bound. She was lying on something hard and cold. Metal. With growing horror, Bethany realized she was in the trunk of a car. She could hear the car moving, the sound of tires on a highway. She tried to scream, but there was tape over her mouth. She kicked at the trunk lid, but it didn't budge. Time became meaningless in the darkness. The car drove for what felt like hours. Bethany cried until she had no tears left. She thought about her parents who lived 3 states away. She thought about her job at the bookstore, her friends, her cat. Would anyone realize she was missing? Would they ever find her? Eventually, the car stopped. Bethany heard doors opening and closing, voices talking in a language she didn't recognize. The trunk opened, and harsh light flooded in, making her squint. Rough hands grabbed her and pulled her out. She was in a garage or warehouse of some kind. Industrial, empty, cold. Kara was there too, also bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. There were more people now, not just Alexis and her 3 men, but others. A woman with a clipboard, a man in an expensive suit who looked at Bethany and Kara like they were livestock. "The blonde is good," the man in the suit said, gesturing at Kara. "Young, attractive. She'll go to Dubai. The brunette." He looked at Bethany critically. "Smaller market, but she'll work. South America, probably." Bethany felt like she was living in a nightmare. These people were discussing selling her and Kara to different continents. They would be separated. They would likely never see each other or their home again. The man in the suit pulled out a phone and made a call. "I have 2 for processing," he said. "Have the transport ready by morning." But then something happened that none of them expected. The warehouse doors burst open with a tremendous crash. "FBI, nobody move!" The room exploded into chaos. The traffickers tried to run, but agents were pouring in from every entrance. There was shouting, people being thrown to the ground, handcuffs clicking. An agent quickly came to Bethany and Kara, carefully removing their gags and cutting their zip ties. "You're safe now," she said. "You're going to be okay." Bethany couldn't process what was happening. She clutched Kara, both of them sobbing with relief and shock. Later, at the FBI field office, wrapped in blankets and drinking terrible coffee, Bethany and Kara learned the truth. Alexis wasn't her real name. She was part of an international trafficking ring that had been under investigation for 2 years. The FBI had been building a case, tracking communications, documenting victims. When Bethany and Kara had created their joint Tinder profile, they had unknowingly matched with Alexis during a period of active FBI surveillance. The agents had been monitoring all of Alexis's communications. When they saw the plan to kidnap Bethany and Kara, they couldn't intervene immediately without blowing their cover and losing the bigger fish. "We had to let it get far enough to catch everyone in the act," the lead agent explained. "I know that sounds terrible, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. But we couldn't risk warning you because any change in your behavior might have tipped them off. We had agents following you from the moment you left the bar." The trunk Bethany had been in was equipped with a tracking device. The FBI knew where they were every second. If the traffickers had tried to hurt them, the agents would have intervened immediately. But they needed to wait until the buyers showed up to arrest everyone involved. The operation resulted in 23 arrests across 4 states. The FBI rescued Bethany and Kara, plus uncovered evidence that led to finding 8 other victims who had been trafficked through the same network over the past 2 years. Some were found overseas and brought home. Others had disappeared too long ago to trace. Alexis, whose real name was Marina Volkov, was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. The man in the suit got life without parole. The others received sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years. But for Bethany and Kara, the nightmare didn't end with the arrests. They both developed severe PTSD. Kara couldn't sleep without medication and had panic attacks in enclosed spaces. Bethany couldn't trust anyone anymore and jumped at every unexpected sound. Their relationship suffered too. They had shared a trauma so profound that being together became a constant reminder of that night. They tried therapy, both individual and couples counseling, but the damage was too deep. They broke up 6 months after the incident, both agreeing they needed to heal separately. Bethany moved back to her hometown to be near her family. She got a job at a library and adopted 2 large dogs for protection. She never dated again. The thought of meeting someone new, of trusting someone enough to be vulnerable, was impossible. She deleted every dating app and refused to download them again. She warned everyone she knew about the dangers. She volunteered with organizations that educated people about trafficking and how to stay safe. The FBI agent who led the case told Bethany that she and Kara were lucky. Most victims of trafficking are never found. They disappear into a dark world of exploitation and abuse, their families never knowing what happened to them. Bethany knows she's a survivor, not a victim, but surviving came with a cost. She lost her innocence, her trust, her relationship, and her sense of safety in the world. She looks at couples on dating apps now and wants to shake them, to warn them that the person on the other end of that screen might not be who they claim to be. Because Bethany learned the hard way that predators have evolved. They don't lurk in dark alleys anymore. They create perfect profiles on dating apps. They say all the right things. They seem trustworthy and normal. They wait for vulnerable people looking for connection, and then they strike. And sometimes, by the time you realize you've made a mistake, you're already in the trunk of a car, heading toward a fate worse than death. Story 6. The photographer Jasmine was a 23-year-old aspiring model trying to build her portfolio. She worked at a coffee shop during the day, but spent her evenings doing photo shoots for local photographers, hoping to get noticed by an agency. When she matched on Tinder with a guy named Alex who said he was a professional photographer, she thought it might be a great opportunity. Alex's profile looked legitimate. His bio said he did editorial and fashion photography for magazines. His photos showed a clean-cut guy in his early 30s with expensive camera equipment. He seemed professional and serious about his work. They chatted for a few days, mostly about photography and modeling. Alex was knowledgeable about lighting, composition, and the industry in general. He offered to do a free photo shoot for Jasmine's portfolio, saying he needed to test some new equipment and she had the perfect look for what he was trying to achieve. Jasmine was excited but cautious. She asked Alex for his website and professional references. He sent her a link to a slick website showcasing beautiful editorial photos. The models in his portfolio looked professional and happy. Jasmine reverse image searched some of the photos and they didn't appear anywhere else online, which suggested they were original work. Alex suggested they do the shoot at his studio on Saturday afternoon. He gave her an address in an industrial area of the city, where a lot of artists had converted warehouse spaces into studios. Jasmine told her roommate Kiara about the shoot and sent her all of Alex's information. "Be careful," Kiara warned. "Take your pepper spray and keep your phone on." "Check in with me every hour," Jasmine promised she would. She had done enough photo shoots to know the basic safety rules. Never drink anything you didn't bring yourself. Never agree to nudity on a first shoot. Always have an exit strategy. Saturday arrived and Jasmine took an Uber to the address Alex had given her. It was a converted warehouse building with several units. Alex had said his studio was Unit 7B on the second floor. The building looked legitimate with other businesses and studios occupying the space. Jasmine found Unit 7B and knocked. Alex opened the door with a friendly smile. He looked exactly like his photos. The studio behind him looked professional too, with lighting equipment, backdrops, and camera gear. Come in, Alex said warmly. "Thanks for coming. I'm really excited about this shoot." Jasmine stepped inside and Alex closed the door behind her. The studio was larger than it had looked from the doorway. There was a main shooting area with lights and backdrops, but also a lounge area with a couch and coffee table, and a door leading to what looked like a bathroom or changing room. "So I was thinking we'd start with some classic portrait shots," Alex said, gesturing toward the main shooting area. "Simple, clean, really let your features shine. Then we can get more creative with different lighting and poses. Sound good?" "Sounds perfect," Jasmine agreed. The shoot started normally. Alex was professional and made Jasmine feel comfortable. He gave clear directions about posing and kept showing her the photos on his camera screen so she could see how they looked. The pictures were actually really good. Jasmine felt herself relaxing. After about 30 minutes, Alex suggested they take a short break. "Want some water? I've got bottles in the mini fridge." Jasmine accepted, and Alex handed her an unopened bottle of water. She checked the seal herself before opening it, one of her safety rules. It was intact. They sat on the couch in the lounge area, reviewing the photos on Alex's laptop. Jasmine was impressed with the quality. These would be perfect for her portfolio. "You're really talented," she told Alex. "These are better than anything I've had done before." "You're a great subject," Alex replied. "Very natural in front of the camera. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. I have a client who's looking for models for a lingerie campaign. Really high-end stuff. Would pay about $3,000 for a day's work. Would you be interested?" Jasmine hesitated. She had never done lingerie modeling before and wasn't sure she wanted to. I don't know. That's pretty revealing. Totally understand, Alex said quickly. No pressure at all. But if you want to see the kind of work it would be, I have some samples from previous shoots. It's very tasteful. More artistic than sexy. He pulled up a folder on his laptop and showed Jasmine several photos. They were indeed tasteful, showing women in elegant lingerie and artistic poses, nothing overly sexual or exploitative. The client would need to see samples of you in similar style, Alex continued. So if you're interested, we could do a few test shots today. You don't have to decide right now about the actual campaign. Just see if you like how the photos turn out. Jasmine thought about it. $3,000 would be life-changing for her right now. And the samples Alex showed her really were tasteful. Okay, she said slowly. But I keep my underwear on, right? This is just to see how I photograph in that style? Exactly, Alex confirmed. You can change in the bathroom. There's a robe you can wear between shots. We'll take it slow, and if you're uncomfortable at any point, we stop. Deal? Deal. Alex showed her to the changing room and gave her a plush white robe. Jasmine went inside and looked around. It was a nice bathroom with good lighting. There was a rack with several robes and some basic makeup supplies. Everything seemed professional and legitimate. Jasmine stripped down to her bra and underwear, then put on the robe. She checked her phone and sent a quick text to Kiara. All good. Doing some additional portfolio shots. Check in again in an hour. When she came out, Alex had adjusted the lighting and set up a different backdrop. Perfect, he said. Let's start with you in the robe. Then we'll open it slightly for some artistic shots. Remember, you're in control. If anything feels wrong, we stop. The first several shots were fine. Jasmine kept the robe mostly closed, just showing her shoulders and collarbone. Alex was encouraging and professional. Then he asked her to let the robe slip down her shoulders a bit more. Jasmine did, feeling slightly uncomfortable but telling herself this was normal for this type of shoot. Alex took several more photos, moving around her, adjusting angles. Beautiful, he kept saying. The camera loves you. Now let's try a few with the robe open but held closed in front. Very artistic, very elegant. Jasmine opened the robe but held it closed across her body. Alex took more photos. Then he asked her to sit on a stool and let the robe drape open slightly to show her legs and the side of her body. With each request, Alex pushed slightly further. Jasmine felt increasingly uncomfortable, but she had committed to this. She kept telling herself it was almost over, that the money would be worth it, that Alex was a professional. Then Alex said something that made her stomach drop. Okay, these are great. Now let's get some without the robe. Just you and your underwear, very simple and clean. I don't think so, Jasmine said, pulling the robe closed. I thought we agreed I'd keep the robe. For the test shots to work, the client needs to see your figure, Alex said. His tone had changed slightly. Less friendly, more insistent. It's standard for this type of thing. Every model I've worked with has done it. No, Jasmine said firmly. I'm not comfortable with that. Alex's expression changed completely. The friendly, professional demeanor vanished. Do you know how much time I've invested in you today? The free shoot, the portfolio photos, all of this setup, and now you're going to back out? I didn't back out of anything, Jasmine said, fear creeping into her voice. I did exactly what we agreed to. Now I'm done. She started walking toward the changing room, but Alex stepped in front of her. You're not leaving until I get what I need. Jasmine's heart started pounding. She looked toward the door, calculating if she could reach it before Alex could stop her. Don't even think about it, Alex said, following her gaze. That door is deadbolted from the inside. You need a key to open it from either side, and I have the only key. Jasmine pulled out her phone, but Alex knocked it out of her hand. It skittered across the floor and under a piece of furniture. "Here's what's going to happen," Alex said, his voice cold and clinical now. "You're going to take off that robe and pose exactly how I tell you to. If you cooperate, you'll walk out of here in an hour. If you don't cooperate, this is going to take a lot longer and be much less pleasant." Jasmine looked around frantically for a weapon, for another way out, for anything. That's when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Hidden partially behind a light stand was a tripod with a video camera on it. The red recording light was on. Alex had been videoing the entire session without her knowledge or consent. "You're recording this," Jasmine whispered. Alex smiled, but it was a predator's smile. "Of course. The photos are for me, but the videos are for my clients. Do you know how much people pay for videos of girls slowly getting more and more uncomfortable? For footage of the exact moment they realize they're trapped? It's quite lucrative." Jasmine felt tears starting to form. "Let me go, please. I won't tell anyone. I'll delete everything. Just please let me go." "No, I don't think so," Alex said. "You see, I've been doing this for 3 years. I've probably had 20 girls through here, all from Tinder or Instagram, all thinking they're getting a legitimate modeling opportunity. And they all say the same thing you're saying right now." He picked up his camera and took a photo of Jasmine's terrified face. "This is actually my favorite part. The fear, the realization. The cameras love it even more than they love beauty." Jasmine backed against the wall, her mind racing. She tried to remember everything Kiara had taught her about self-defense. Her pepper spray was in her purse, which she had left by the couch. Her phone was under furniture somewhere. She was in her underwear and a robe, trapped in a locked studio with a predator. But then she remembered something else. Before the shoot, she had turned on her phone's emergency location sharing. It was a feature Kiara had made her set up. If Jasmine didn't check in when she said she would, her location would automatically be sent to Kiara along with an alert. She had told Kiara she would check in again in an hour. It had been at least 40 minutes since that text. Just 20 more minutes and Kiara would get an alert. Jasmine needed to stall for 20 minutes. "Okay," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "You're right. I'm sorry I got upset. I'll cooperate. But can I use the bathroom first? I need to calm down." Alex studied her suspiciously. "Fine, 2 minutes. And don't try anything stupid. There's no window in there and I'll be right outside the door." Jasmine went into the bathroom and locked the door. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely turn the lock. She looked around frantically for anything useful. There was a heavy glass soap dispenser, a metal towel bar, a plunger. She grabbed the towel bar and tried to wrench it off the wall, but it was firmly attached. She picked up the plunger instead. It was flimsy and wouldn't work as a weapon. "Time's up," Alex called from outside. Jasmine splashed water on her face and tried to think. She needed to keep stalling. She opened the door slowly. "I'm really scared," she said. Which was true. "Can we maybe just talk for a few minutes? I'm shaking too much for photos right now." Alex sighed impatiently but nodded. "Fine, but you're wasting my time." They sat down and Jasmine forced herself to make conversation. She asked him about his work, about how he got started, anything to keep him talking. She kept glancing at the clock on the wall. 15 minutes. 10 minutes. Alex was getting irritated. "Enough stalling," he finally said, standing up. "Take off the robe, now." Jasmine stood too, backing away. "No, I'm not doing this." "Yes, you are," Alex said, advancing on her. That's when they both heard it. Loud knocking on the studio door. Then a voice. "Jasmine, are you in there?" "It's Kiara." "I'm here with the police." Alex's face went white. He spun toward the door, momentarily distracted. Jasmine saw her chance. She grabbed the heavy camera that was sitting on the couch and swung it with all her strength at Alex's head. The camera connected with a sickening crack. Alex stumbled and fell. Jasmine didn't wait to see if he was okay. She grabbed his keys from where they had fallen on the floor and ran to the door. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely get the key in the deadbolt. Behind her she heard Alex groaning, starting to get up. The key finally turned and Jasmine yanked the door open. Kiara was there with 2 police officers. They immediately pushed past Jasmine and tackled Alex, who was trying to reach for something in a drawer. Jasmine collapsed into Kiara's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The police found a gun in the drawer Alex had been reaching for. They also found Jasmine's phone, which they had tracked using the emergency location sharing feature. When Jasmine hadn't checked in, Kiara had immediately called 911 and given them the address. A search of Alex's studio revealed the full extent of his crimes. There were hard drives containing videos of 23 different women, all recorded without their consent. Some of the videos showed sexual assaults. The police were able to identify and contact 19 of the women. Alex's real name was Trevor Hammond, and he had convictions for voyeurism and sexual assault in 2 other states. The professional photographer website was fake. The photos in his portfolio were stolen from actual photographers. His entire Tinder profile was designed to lure young women who wanted modeling experience. Trevor was sentenced to 40 years in prison for multiple counts of kidnapping, sexual assault, illegal recording, and weapons charges. Jasmine never modeled again. She couldn't even look at a camera without having a panic attack. She quit her coffee shop job and moved back home with her parents. She started therapy and slowly began to rebuild her life. But she knows how close she came to being one of the women who disappeared, who became just another video on a predator's hard drive, another name in a police file. She had followed all the safety rules, told someone where she was going, checked his credentials, stayed alert, and it almost wasn't enough. Because predators like Trevor are professionals too. They've learned to seem legitimate. They create convincing websites and portfolios. They know exactly what to say to make women feel safe. They're patient and methodical. And they count on their victims being too scared or ashamed to fight back. Jasmine speaks at schools and community centers now, warning young women about the dangers of meeting strangers from apps. Even when those strangers seem professional or legitimate, she tells her story, even though it's painful, because she wants other women to understand that danger doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks like an opportunity. Sometimes it looks like a kind photographer offering to help your career. Sometimes it looks like everything you've been hoping for, and by the time you realize it's a trap, you're already locked inside.